that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.
Shame! Shame! You do a disservice to Pennsylvania.
Oh man, I love that clip. I love both those clips actually, and I'm not being mean because I'm actually talking very nicely about the guy today. So don't worry, I'm not what would be called shaming disabled people, I guess, if you want to, whatever term you would use for that. But no, from the very beginning, this guy was hilarious, and I'm not trying to. I don't even mean it in a mean way, because honestly, if this guy is the best that the Democrats have got, I mean, hey, he's better than the rest of them. So, and he's actually open-minded and intelligent enough to recognize the importance of things like borders, for example, the difference between, let's say, a state defending itself and a state that has terrorists that are running the entire country, for example. So he has a whole hell of a lot more common sense, and just even after the stroke, his brain seems to work far better than anyone on the Democrat Party at the moment. So, anyway, though, I don't want to go too far into that yet, but. Yeah, that's this is just a day with too much information about this stuff to pass up, and I had to kind of there's a lot of it's another one of those days where there's a lot of news. It's just kind of rehashing a lot of the old stuff that have been going on. Democrats on television complaining and whining about the whole cases against Trump falling apart. Oh no, Jack Smith failed us. Oh no. Yeah, I cry harder. Anyway, so you got that, and then on a lot of the right-hand channels, you got just kind of more of the same old. I mean, there was a lot of good news yesterday, but I mean, they're just kind of delving deeper into that. There's not a lot of new information going on, but the reason I'm doing this today is I saw a segment on Bret Baier's show on Fox where he had on Senator Katie Britt and Senator John Fetterman, and so I was like, whoa, wait, what? Because I didn't know they'd been on before together on the show, but apparently they had. And Katie Britt, she's like you can just tell she's a super big softie. She's not. I mean, I will say this: she came down hard on Mayorkas because I don't think you have to be even that stern or that like have that much really even any guts to stand up to Secretary Mayorkas. You just have to look at his body of work and say, "What the fuck are you doing, dude? Why do you hate America so much?" That's basically the only decision you can come to. But and John Fetterman is one of the few people on the left that just is like, why? What are we doing? Why are we doing? And don't forget, it was on Joe Rogan's show that hey, Eddie Madison, what's going on, man? It's shaking pretty good. Doing good today, man. Actually, I can't do too long today because I actually gotta run out and I gotta run to got to go out of town actually because there's just well, this town I live in, it sucks and you can't ever find anything. So I have to go to it's not that far away, but I do have to take a little bit of a drive to out of town to pick something up, and it's not that it's gonna take a super long amount of time, but they close pretty early, so I don't want to get all screwed up. But the point is that I do want to kind of be a little bit faster than usual. Not to the point that I'm rushing today, but just to be a little bit faster so I finish up a little bit earlier. And I started, I've noticed this lately, and I think it's maybe just time to kind of accept it because as I've tried to do things a little bit differently and do it at as early as I can, I have consistently over the last couple of weeks, I think, ended up always being at 1 o'clock my time. Which would be, as far as like the East Coast, United States, that would be about 4 o'clock. And I know in England that would be around 9 o'clock. Yeah. So if my estimation is correct, I think that would be not too big of a stretch because I initially was aiming for 11. I pushed it back to 12 and it never worked. But when I've been doing everything lately, it wasn't like when I tried to push it back to 12 and then it just pushed back to 1. This time it's been like I didn't push it back at all. I just happened to always make it at 1 o'clock. So I think from here on out, you guys can pretty much expect that the time I've been mostly coming on lately, with some exceptions, I've been late a couple times, but it hasn't been at all in most cases, like unless it's a day where I'm really, really late and I do a super late night show or something. But aside from that, I'm usually pretty much always on around this time. I think yesterday I came on at 1:03. So yeah, I mean, it seems consistent enough to say at this point that, yeah, this is the time you can expect me on. And hey, at least I finally have something kind of set. So, but anyway, so for today's episode, and by the way, if you didn't get to see what was going on in that first clip or the second clip in the intro, that's obviously because of their chants, ceasefire now, ceasefire. That was I've talked about this clip before. That's John Fetterman walking out of the Capitol building with a little Israel flag, waving it as he walks by the protesters. And if you can, when you see it from another camera angle, the camera catches his voice better. I tried to find it, I couldn't find it. It sucks, but the other camera angle catches his voice a little bit better, and he's just saying, "You're scum. You're scum. You deserve to be arrested. You're scum." So he's just ripping on him the whole time. It's like he's trolling him pretty much. I mean, he's honestly, seriously trolling him. And I never heard it from the protesters' perspective, but they're all calling John Fetterman disgrace, disgrace, disgrace. You're a disgrace to Pennsylvania. Yeah, oh yeah, man. John Fetterman, man, what a disgrace to Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's not, I mean, don't get me started. Anyway, it's just funny as hell seeing it now because I never would have guessed in a million years from the debate starting with, "Hi, good night, everybody," to now that would be the guy that would be the most reasonable. And, I've talked about this before, but his appearance on Joe Rogan, possibly one of the most revealing moments of any politician on Joe Rogan's show, that especially a Democrat going against his party position, or at least saying something that is definitely not beneficial to his party's position on immigration, when Joe just kind of comes out and asks, what exactly would it be that would cause a party to decide that we don't want to check IDs, we don't want to hold people in any kind of don't want to detain people. We don't want to institute remain in Mexico or safe third country agreements of any kind. We're just going to release them into the country with no guarantee that they'll ever show up, and stop border wall production and stop hiring more border agents, not require. And the main issue, I think, in that one was, why wouldn't you require voter ID, especially when because at that point, that was when California, in all of her lovely wisdom and just, the incredible decisions by this governor and government, decided that not only were you not required to show a voter ID to be able to vote, but if you decided that, I'm going to show it anyway just to show that I'm a legal voter, that's against the law now. It's against the law to even show the voter ID. It's worse probably in California to show a voter ID than to walk into the voting booth with a joint. I would imagine that that's probably a pretty commonly held decision in this state. But John Fetterman is being asked that question by Joe Rogan, and the ultimate question is, what would be the motivation for a party to do that? The only thing I can think of is that they're hoping that it's going to mean more Democrat voters, and John Fetterman just answers honestly. He's like, yeah, I can't think of anything either. I would imagine that's the only thing it could be. I don't remember his exact wording, but he basically conceded that, yeah, that's probably the only reason that would be conceivable. I'm sorry, what? You're saying that? And that's why I have such respect for the guy, because not only did the guy, he's honest about the fact that when, of course, the stroke, that's obvious, and he's got the sort of disability because of that, and it's a strange disability. He's talked about it many times. He can hear what people are saying, but he can't process the words that they're saying. So he can hear the words, but he can't hear the coherent sentence that they're using. It just sounds like mumbled, nothing to him. So it's like if someone's speaking Japanese in front of you and you don't speak Japanese, it'd be like something like that. You could hear the words, but you don't know at all what they're saying. So you look down he looks down at a screen that has the words spelled out for him, and then he reads that, and he uses that as the way he can understand people's speech and then communicate. And it was so there's that. And then he was very honest about the fact that when he first got to the Senate, he went through a sort of real bad period of depression. He mentioned something about his family having serious depression, and that he went in to get help, and after it took a few months, but after that he kind of picked himself up and went back to work, and he's been back ever since. And I gotta say, hearing that story from a guy like that, and then him mentioning at the end that because Joe Rogan's also a big advocate of this as well, and it's something that gets talked about, but it gets used as a crutch far too often, and people either think of it as just an excuse, or people will really literally use it as an excuse. But as soon as you start saying something like depression or anxiety or some type of mental disorder, people go, oh yeah, right, I kind of scoff, like it's like not real or it's not true. And it's like, speaking from experience, I can say for sure I understand how bad it is, but or how bad it can get, at least. But for a senator to say out loud that I had a real bad bout of depression, we don't talk about it enough in this country, and talk about it in an honest way. But we have a serious problem with mental health in the country, and a lot of the medications that people receive for them don't actually do anything to help the issue. And that's, once again, Joe totally is on board with that. I think I mentioned this tweet he put out before, and he attributed it to someone else. I never remember the second half, but I always remember the first half because it was so important. We have a mental health problem in this country disguised as a gun problem. And that's exactly, kind of more than anything else, the responsibility for that is on the Democrats, because anytime there was a mass shooting, anytime there was a school shooting, anytime there was an event with someone who commits a big act of mass murder, there's almost one constant common denominator almost always. Not always, so I can't, I won't say that for sure, but because nobody questions this, it's like we don't have any definitive answers. But almost every single one was either on some sort of psychiatric medication, or they had been taking some type of psychiatric medication and weren't taking it anymore, or were self-medicating based on potentially an undiagnosed mental disorder that they may have had. And there's very few cases otherwise. So you could even argue, and I would argue from this perspective, based on the idea that the Nashville shooter was, somebody who had been, she was not even 18 and was already fully embracing the whole transgender man idea, and had a huge amount of contempt for conservatives and for white people and middle class Americans and all that shit. And so, that person obviously had very very deep rooted psychological issues. Now, once again, that's something that the left would like basically bite your head off for, because they would, how dare you say that? They're trans and they know they're trans. Like, okay, well, if they know they're trans, that means that they're going to go shoot up a bunch of kids. I'm sorry, but you can't keep blaming it on the gun. It's not, the gun didn't walk into the school and start killing children. It was a transgender. It was a woman who thought she was a man, and was very insecure about that, obviously, and was also seemed very insecure with herself, and so and was lashing out at anyone and everyone that she blamed for that. So, and it's there's also a, kind of a similar profile. There's been differences, obviously, like the nightclub shooter, Pulse nightclub shooter. That was, once again, going back to this Islamic world, and it's interesting about the that incident, and now when you compare, I didn't even think of this until just a second, which is crazy. But if you remember back then when that happened, and I'm not trying to draw a super strong correlation here. I'm just saying that the Pulse nightclub shooter was praised by tons of people that were like sort of radical Islamic extremist types that were not just in the U.S. but in Islamic countries. They're praising him and saying he was a hero, he was a martyr, he was this, he was that. But it was because he was gay, and he despised the fact that he was gay, so he went to a gay nightclub and shot a bunch of people up and ended up getting killed. And now you have someone who is a girl who is on transgender medication to probably heavy doses of testosterone. I mean, you could tell by the way that her facial structure was at the time, that the few photos that have been released, and her so her shoulders, her facial structure, like, she definitely had been on some incredibly strong testosterone, and it had to have been close to the time she was going through puberty, because it was definitely during a developmental stage of her life. And that's gonna, listening to Chloe Cole, who talked about that, and thank God for her, she realized before she let it get too far that she had made a mistake, although she's paying a serious price for it, and it's such a sad case. But once again, this person goes in, and based on the fact that she's been told that she would just be happy if she was allowed to transition fully into a man, And it's those damned Republicans, and they are the ones that are responsible for discriminating against. It's like, no, that's not true. And it's just an interesting correlation there, because once again, there are two instances, and in the second one, especially in the Nashville shooting, we didn't even know anything about the shooter, because the police and the FBI and the local the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. I think there's a TBI. I know there's a CBI from Colorado Bureau of Investigation, but I think that, anyway, they were keeping the manifesto completely under wraps. Like, they did not want that getting out at all. And when it got leaked, when portions of it got leaked, you could see exactly why, because it did not paint a pretty picture at all of the type of rhetoric that we've been hearing over and over again about how susceptible to suicide transgender children are. I hate that stupid rhetoric. It's one of the worst things you can say, and for some of the worst reasons possible. But anyway, so to bring it back to John Fetterman, sorry, I went off on a little bit of tangent there, but bring it back to John Fetterman. He was so the first time I saw it was on. It wasn't on Joe Rogan, but I had seen these signs. Actually, the first one I saw was the thing with the Israel flag, and I loved that so much. I just thought that was hilarious because, like, he's trolling him. He's seriously trolling him, like walking with this little Israeli flag waving it, like, "You're scum, you're scum, you deserve to be arrested." It was I was dying laughing. It was so funny. I so wish I could have found that clip, but at least you got to see what it looks like from the protesters' perspective. But anyway, he's one of the few people that actually will openly stand up for some sanity. And to be honest, I'm proud of the guy because he actually can do that. But more than anything else, I see it as a good sign, because it's almost like being put into a corner for Democrats, because what are they going to do? They're going to actually discriminate against the guy who had a stroke? Are they actually going to, put him out just because he has a disability? Are they not going to cater to that? I mean, it's not much to ask. They were standing up for the fact that, and it was funny, he was talking about this on Joe Rogan too, about wearing a hoodie and shorts, and it's just like, well, when was the dress code instituted? I never saw any dress code in the rules or anything. And who knows, maybe there is one somewhere buried inside, but God, they have so many damn rules in Washington, I don't think it would hurt to break a couple of them. But but anyway, I was like, man, this is hilarious. And he's just like, not only has he got this mindset, but then he says, like, Trump's right about the border. We have way too many people here. It's common sense just to vet people coming into the country. I have no idea. I don't know if he actually said something exactly like this, but essentially alluded to the fact that the idea of not DNA testing when you have a child with the group is ludicrous. It's insanity. There's no way in hell that you should be allowing anyone to come through with a child if you don't DNA test both people or all the people in that group to make sure it really is a family. But they did away with that because, I do know why they did that, because they need to process them faster, and that was their whole goal. But anyway, the scene that is going on in this clip that I'm going to bring up is on Brett Baer's show that was, I don't know if it was last night or this morning, but anyway, he had, like I said, John Fetterman and Katie Britt on, and they were both talking about the Laken Riley Act. And they also touch on the whole discussion around Greenland, and also, so bring up that issue as well. He's equally concerned about China's aggressive sorts of action as far as like in Panama. And there were discussions between China and Russia about having some sort of new, like a modern day Silk Road type of setup that goes through the northern uh, sort of the northern polar areas, not all the way, to the actually right to the North Pole itself, but along the ice capped upper hemisphere not upper hemisphere, the upper icy areas of the northern polar areas, and so the idea is obviously to open up another way for trade routes to go around the United States by sea or by air, and to have that open as ways for China and Russia to trade easier. And so Trump has been talking about the Panama Canal because it's in serious need of repairs, and also about Greenland because that's right in the middle of that area where you would be wanting to be monitoring it heavily if you knew there was going to be a lot of trade between Russia and China. And Greenland actually has been mentioning not mentioning, they have been openly stating that we are concerned about this issue going into the next few years, and it's something we can't. We obviously don't have the resources or the capabilities of handling on our own, and so of course Trump, being the opportunist that he is, would be all over that immediately, and he definitely was. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump Jr. went to Greenland just the other, I think it was last weekend, and spent some time there talking to the people, talking to their leaders, and he said of course it's a beautiful country, but that is a real point of concern right now. And once again, he's right alongside that. He also talked briefly about meeting with some of the candidates that Trump has chosen for his administration. And, I'll just play the clip and let him speak on it. But it's all, this is like so surreal almost, but this is just an example of pretty much the only Democrat you'll hear speaking like this. And so brace yourselves, because it might be shocking to hear, but there actually is some sanity in the Democrat Party. So let's get to this clip right here. It's only about, it's about 10 minutes long, I think. So, let me find this real quick, and I'll kind of give my commentary as we go. But it's this is really the main topic for today. So there's not a ton of other subjects we're going to be going over, or there's not really any other subjects I'd plan on going over. Let's see, where is here we go. Oh, and by the way, so I was finally doing some work, and this is totally off subject, but I finally got my soundboard working, and got the clips that I was missing. I finally got to put those up on my soundboard, and maybe once in a while you'll hear something like, I don't know.
It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot.
Yeah, man. You're going to hear some hard Senator Kennedy popping in and letting us know about his favorite dildo. And that's what the left believes needs to be allowed to be in school libraries, by the way. I don't know about you, but I'd say it's not too radical to say that that's kind of a little out of the realm of normal for children to be exposed to in a school library, especially under like 13 and under. I'm just saying. I didn't know what a dildo was when I was 13 or 12, and I think it's probably better that I didn't know that. But once again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but that's just my own life experience. I actually do want to speak, at least though, for the side of rationality, that it's fucking crazy to suggest that children should be reading books that have discussions of strap-on dildos and blowjobs and gay sex and really anything involving any kind of sexual discussion beyond scientific level, which I was finally starting to get introduced to at age 13 in biology, and that was just anatomy and human reproduction. That was basically it. We had no discussions about sexual positions or gay sex or, I mean, goddamn, it's insane thinking about this. But why am I not able to see the folder? It's right here. Here we go. Okay. I'm sorry. I had a huge brain fart right there. It was kind of obvious. But anyway, okay. Oh, it should be S. Yep. Oh, actually, it isn't. I left untitled at the beginning, but that's all right. I still found it. So there we go. Okay, so let me pull this up, and we'll get this thing rolling. Anyway, I just had to at least show you guys that clip because, man, it took a long time to freaking... I didn't know what the hell the problem was. I didn't have any problem getting any of the other clips rendered or anything and getting them ready to put onto the soundboard, but for some reason, that one just always had a problem. So, anyway, okay, there we go. So, here, let's... I think we're good. So, oh, wait, volume and volume. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go.
Joining us to talk about the Laken Riley Act and other things, Alabama Republican Senator Katie Britt and Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman. Thank you both for being here again in Common Ground. Why is this important, and how confident are you about the Senate action here?
Confident.
Yeah, so I think we've seen this litigated over the last 4 years, time and time again. And I think on November 5th, the American people delivered a verdict and said, we want secure borders. We want you to prioritize the safety and security of Americans over open border policies. And so this is a common sense piece of legislation, obviously named after a remarkable young woman that was taken from this earth way too soon. And I think that the bipartisan support that you saw in the House, I am really hopeful will carry on.
By the way, I'm sure everybody by now has heard about the events around the murder of Laken Riley, but just in case you're kind of unfamiliar with some of the facts, there was this guy had gotten into the country illegally. He had been arrested several times, including the last time he was arrested was for child endangerment. Was never held, was released and went to Georgia and hanging around a bike trail or a running trail in the early morning in Georgia, and just saw this girl who was jogging, and nobody knows. It was probably intended to be a sexual assault, but she probably fought hard enough to where he just decided to beat her to death. So as far as I remember, he grabbed a rock and cracked her skull in, and it was incredibly brutal. But that's the party of mercy, and the party of compassion. It's disgusting, but and they don't seem to have any issue with they. I remember. I just have to get this, and we'll go back, but I just have to get this out because I remember at the State of the Union the last time, Biden tried to say something like, because Marjorie Taylor Greene was shouting, "What about Laken Riley? What about Laken Riley? What about," and trying to make sure that he was forced to address it. And of course, he says Lincoln Riley. He doesn't even know her name, so he says Lincoln Riley, and then he says, something like she was a beautiful girl. She died too young. At the hands of an illegal immigrant. And then this is the kicker. He said, but how many people in this country are killed by people who aren't here illegally? I'm sorry, what? What? Yeah, that's your rebuttal. Okay. Yeah, man. Wow. Whew. Man, you're smoking them there, dude. But anyway, it was probably one of the worst excuses you could ever use for some kind of situation like that. Like, well, I mean, people who are legal residents kill people too. I think you're missing the point. Because they would have been here anyway if you weren't the president. If you weren't the president and didn't put that jackass, bald piece of shit Alejandro Mayorkas, I'm sorry, but that guy is a piece of shit, as your Secretary of Homeland Security, then maybe she might be alive today. Or if your lunatic party believed in, I don't know, the idea of bail and that you need to put some money up to guarantee your appearance in court, then, maybe that would have stopped him too. But since they believe in no cash bail and because they believe in open borders, she's dead. And your rebuttal is, well, Americans kill people too. Very nice. That's the compassionate leader, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyway, let's get back to this.
Into the Senate, and we're already seeing good traction from our Senate colleagues interested in coming on board.
Senator Fetterman, there are Democrats, obviously, who spoke out against this today. One of them, Congressman Raskin. Take a listen.
This guy's a rat.
Pick a crime, paste into it a template immigration law covering convicted criminals, and then require detention or deportation of certain persons merely accused of committing the crime or arrested for committing the crime. No due process required at all. This allows us to get up and demonize immigrants.
So what do you say to that?
Once again, I'm sorry, but I have to interject. I'm sorry, Jamie Raskin, you fucking rat. But there's a little bit of a problem there in what you said. You see, there's one issue. We already know they're here illegally, you dumb shit. There's no confusion about that part. So why is it our responsibility to even go through spending the money to adjudicate the case? How about we just deport them? God damn, it's so stupid. Anyway. So, yeah, let's get back to it. It's just like, it blows my mind. They have become so convinced of their moral superiority that they don't even think about the fact that, yeah, we're letting illegal people into the country every day by the thousands. Yeah. Okay, that's compassion. It's insanity.
You've signed on to this bill.
Oh, well, I mean, I have a lot of enormous respect for my colleague in the House, but I just happen to disagree on this. And for me, just like my friend and colleague in the Senate, like, it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why? Exactly. I don't know why, who wants to defend to allow them to remain in our nation through that? And now if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
You believe that's a Democrat?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of them.
Did your jaw hit the floor when you hear a guy who's a Democrat senator actually say that? And it's crazy. That opening clip was meant partly because it's just funny. I'm sorry. He seems like he can take a joke, and yeah, it's just funny. It's probably more out of nerves than even out of disability, but even so, the point is that everybody was worried about how competent he would be. I can say this: that concern for me has been completely washed away. I mean, I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but at the same time, at least this is a Democrat that actually acts like a actual senator is supposed to, and is doing the things a senator is supposed to do, and actually cares about his constituents and the American people, and not just in words, but actually shows that he does by voting the way that he believes he should vote on behalf of his constituents and the American people, and not just for party line votes. It is so crazy. And the fact that it's a victim of a stroke and someone who had serious depression, it took a guy with that kind of background to actually be the one sane freaking Democrat in the Senate. And just to say that part out loud, if we can't have 7 people in our party that recognize how much crime is taking part because of the illegal immigrants that are in this country right now, then it'll be obvious why we lost the election. And it should be obvious. I mean, it already is, but that's because, I think the point is it's because of things like this. It's exactly because of things like this that they did lose the election. So anyway, it's amazing, though, to hear him as the only rational voice to say this kind of thing. And he consistently is the only. That's why it's so crazy, because he's consistently the only one that sounds like this anymore. And everyone, you'll hear Kamala Harris and her campaign talk about it. He's not campaigning right now. He's not up for election or anything like that. So this is just him as the senator speaking. And that's what's so remarkable about it. This isn't just an ad. This isn't just propaganda. This is his position. And it's like, man, what the hell happened to the rest of the party? It's moments like this where you recognize, like, man, it's insane how deep the rot went in the party that you got someone like this. And honestly, I think he just, whatever was going on in his life was so time consuming and so distracting that maybe he just missed how fast his party converted into a radical totalitarian party. But I don't know. It's crazy. But and you didn't catch signs like this during the campaign. But I guess that was kind of because, you really didn't get to hear much. And there's all campaign advisors and, they have all that shit going on. They're going to tell you how to respond and what to say and how to appeal to voters and blah, 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 blah. But when you see him in Congress, if he had been allowed to campaign saying things like this, I think there would have been much less concern. So anyway, let's get back to it. It blows my mind every time I hear him speak about things like this, and I hear that kind of answer, and just wow, you don't hear that anymore. So.
Why we lost, in part.
Go ahead.
Brett, if you think about that, I mean, that's what he's saying, needing the 7 votes to be able to debate this bill. And I think the American people have already answered that question. They have said, we want you to find ways to have common sense, bipartisan solutions to help us secure our border and keep our country and communities safe. And so I'm hopeful that our colleagues will come together and say, let's talk about this.
Well, I mean, I've been in this same chair, and I was arguing about a year ago saying that, you can be pro-immigration, but we need a secure border. And we have a serious issue here on the border, and we have to address that. And here we have now, we can be pro-immigration. And I really believe we should protect the dreamers. But I don't know why it's controversial that we need to deport any migrants here illegal that are engaging in kinds of criminal activity. I don't know why that's controversial to anybody.
So this starts, if the Senate passes and it gets eventually to the president's desk, a process on the immigration, but on the bigger, broader economic aspects of it, which would require funding, there is this debate of whether to have one big, beautiful bill, as President-elect Trump says, or whether to have 2 bills to go at it. Do you have a sense of how that's going to go?
So obviously we've seen that the president talked about one big, beautiful bill, and at the end of the day, we're going to do whatever it takes to produce results for the American people. There's a lot that we've got to do when you're looking at the border, when you're looking at energy, when you're looking at creating a strong defense, and when you're looking at creating economic prosperity for all Americans. And so whatever road gets us to that result is the one that we're going to take. We're excited tomorrow night. Senate Republicans will get to visit with President Trump, and we'll get to talk about the best pathway forward. And I think we're all eager to get working and to actually produce results for the American people.
Senator Fetterman, you've met with a number of nominees already. You've suggested...
just did one of your former colleagues here just about 3 hours ago.
Is that right?
Sean Duffy, actually.
Oh, Sean Duffy.
Yeah.
Senator Warner, the chair of the, co-chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, met with Tulsi Gabbard. He said he had a session with Ms. Gabbard. He went on with a lot of questions. He's still got a lot of questions,
Tuberville did
and
too,
that we have to do a process, a beginning of a process, suggesting that there's a long way to go. Is this Tulsi Gabbard one of the nominees that you could vote for?
Well, I met with her. In fact, I think I've met with virtually all of them. And the ones that I haven't, they're on my schedule, RFK and Governor Noem. So I'm happy to meet with all of them. And that's also part of this. I don't know why that was controversial. I mean, I got a lot of blowback just, even to meet with them. And to me, I see that as just doing my job. And I'm going to have a conversation with anyone that would like to have a conversation with me. And if someone believed everything that's been written or said about me was true, I mean, you can't possibly know me, or I think I could know her either, just based on someone read. But I want to sit down and have a conversation, and I'm really glad that I've done that. And some of these nominees I'm going to vote for already. In fact, whether it's our colleague Rubio, Representative Stefanik, or even Sean Duffy, I expect to vote for him as well too, and Brooke Rollins for agriculture. Yeah. So there's a lot of them I can say right now here on Fox. I'm going to vote for them. But there's others, but that we're going to go through the process. But I'm open to hear from everyone, and I don't know why that's controversial. And I also would like to remind everyone on the Democratic side, that's the way democracy works. Trump won, and now they're going to run the table, and so they get to pick those kinds of people. And if you don't have to agree with all of it, but I want to find a way to work together on a bunch of them.
And I want to.
Wow. Once again, I forgot the whole his whole discussion, talking points and everything, but this is everything that's wrong with the party is something that he doesn't seem to share. It's an opposition party. They're going to disagree. Of course, that's the way the two-party system works. That's the way it's supposed to work. But there's supposed to be a debate, and it's supposed to be a vigorous debate. It's supposed to be a impassioned debate. There's supposed to be some points of contention, but there's supposed to be a process where you arrive at a decision that is acceptable to both parties. There isn't supposed to be a process where one party runs roughshod over everything and tries to use any and all means necessary, including attempting to import a bunch of illegal citizens because you believe that they're going to be voters for your party, to use them to vote for you, to stay in power in perpetuity so that you never lose again and you always get your way on everything. It's so insane that that's how far one party's gone. And there's this one guy left here who's like, yeah, that's the process was supposed to be like this. And I don't know why everyone's all, and it's just like, man. And it's because, I guess the only possible reason, and I've thrown out a few theories too, but I guess at the root of it, I think one of the only real reasons why you can think that he even has this mindset to begin with is, like Donald Trump, he lived in Pennsylvania, but he lived in Pennsylvania his whole life. He was just a Pennsylvania citizen, and he ran for mayor, and then he ran for what was the position? I can't remember. It wasn't governor, was it? No, it wasn't governor. I don't remember what it was. He was mayor, though, for sure, of a town in Pennsylvania. It wasn't a big town, but he was mayor for a town. But anyway, my point is just that he's not from Washington. That's the overall point, is that, like Donald Trump, he's not from Washington. He hasn't spent all his life in Washington. He's not concerned about how the elite Washington politicians think of him and every move he makes. And so he's not wired that way in the way of like, well, what am I going to get out of this? What kind of deal am I going to be able to, how am I going to be able to manipulate this situation to gain something out of it? His mind doesn't even go there. And that's what's so desperately wrong with people on the right too. That's what's so desperately messed up about the entire legislative branch in general at this point, because of combined with stock trading that happens by way of their spouses, like Nancy Pelosi is a great example, but there's others, and there's that plus lobbyists plus just essentially unions. Like Randy Weingarten was one of the most obvious ones especially during COVID, because it was just the teachers' unions were just getting plenty of money for not doing a lot. They didn't even have to leave the house, and they're getting a shit ton of money. But there's so much special interest bullshit that gets in the way, and he's just not wired that way. And he's not incredibly wealthy. He's not he's not someone who, now once again, there's tons of things you can find and points of disagreement, of course. But one of the most important things that I look for when I'm trying to figure out what I think of somebody is if they're open-minded enough to have the discussion, and then whether they win or lose, if they do it with some sort of humility and some sort of sense of appreciation for the process, and are willing to engage in good faith if another topic comes up that they need to discuss. Like, it seems like this is the kind of guy that has that kind of mindset. And the thing about Donald Trump is that while he's very, very tough in terms of negotiation, considering the fact that he's from one of the most cutthroat businesses you could possibly be involved in, and had been all his life, and had learned the ins and outs of that business arguably better than anyone. You could say that taking that kind of skill set and bringing it into the role of a political figure as opposed to the job he was doing, it's going to be kind of foreign to the political people, but it's also going to be from a perspective of a guy who gets that okay, we need to work out some kind of conclusive deal here that's going to, in the end, benefit both people, but I'm here on behalf of the people I represent. So my main concern is making sure that we get as much for the American people as we can in any agreement. And that's what America First and the MAG agenda is all about. But like, until that shouldn't be any way a problem until you start falling for the whole oppressor oppressed, victimizer victimized mentality, where every single interaction in life is a dynamic conflict of power, and someone is inevitably going to lose and therefore be unjustly denied the benefits that come along with the result of winning that discussion. And the problem with that conclusion is that there's a reason somebody would lose a debate, or a reason someone would lose a discussion, and that is they either didn't make their case strong enough, or someone has a better case, or they just are not highlighting points that are strong enough to be weighed against the opposing viewpoints and come out being more important. It's like there's a reason why a debate will swing one way or another, and it very rarely has to do with at least in the level of like when the public or a national audience, for example, is able to see it and see the discussion, see the debate. It's exactly what happened in the last election. They could say a convicted felon as many times as they want, but the people know that's bullshit. That's not proving a case. Just to say that Kamala Harris is a former district attorney who, by the way, caused more violent crime to spike than almost any DA before her. That's not saying anything, nor is calling Donald Trump a convicted felon when he's been convicted by being denied his fourth, fifth, sixth, and like I think what is it, eighth or ninth amendment? Like 3 or 4 of his constitutional rights were violated just to get that conviction. And so, like, it doesn't mean much to the American people when the caveats and the asterisks are there that have to denote, by the way, this is true, but, and by the way, this is true, but, and that's what I mean by, like, there has to be a legitimacy to the argument. And once again, if you were to hear an argument and a debate and hear the whole thing play out, you're naturally going to arrive based on your own values at a conclusion. But then there's also some instances where it's just like it's obvious and undeniably true that there is a result with a clear-cut winner sometimes, and it's just pure and simple. And I think this is the problem the Democrats are having, is that this is one of those times, and it's not in their own favor. And unfortunately, I think the Democrats, they really, if they're going to be able to revitalize their party, they have to figure out a way to base their arguments on things that are rooted in truth again, and not just attempt to gaslight and to take some kind of issue and blow it out of proportion, like January 6th, or like Trump's legal cases, or like, all these things they always talk about. These are such to equate January 6th with September 11th or Pearl Harbor is literally insane. It's literally, there's no way you could say that and be either honest or sane, one or the other. And obviously it's quite apparent that the person saying them is completely just lying. She might be insane too, but she's definitely lying in this case. But the point is that, like, voters are going to be able to see that. They're going to recognize it. They're going to recognize the willingness to lie and the ease of that person to just lie in front of a national audience where facts obviously don't align at all with what she's saying. And it's going to be an obvious decision. And then you see what happens. And it's like, so to recognize that, and if you guys ever watched Dan Bongino's show, one of the things, he wrote a book actually about this. It's called The Gift of Failure, and he talks about how in his life he learned more from failing than from success. And it's true. I mean, obviously, you are going to you're forced to learn more when you fail, because if you want to actually succeed, then you're going to have to learn what doesn't work and what works. And to learn what doesn't work and what works, you have to try and see both things, what works and what doesn't work. And so the problem with the Democrats is they don't want to have to suffer the consequences when they do end up on the losing end of something. They expect to be given a pass and expect that, well, our hearts are in the right place. I don't care. There's thousands of people that are dead because of your heart. Like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, you can narrow it, or you can boil it down to the cliches that we've said for decades and decades and decades, centuries, and they're lessons that should be obvious, especially considering the average age of somebody in the Senate. But once again, that's just the modern day situation of our political system, and why there needs to be some serious reforms. And to be honest, I said this before, and I'll say it one more time, and we'll get back to the thing. But voters for these people really need to actually stop just reflexively voting for whoever they're supposed to vote for, I guess, quote unquote, supposed to, and really think about it next time they go to vote. Because honestly, in a lot of these places, I don't care who you put them up against. Is it going to get any worse? Because it couldn't possibly get any worse for, Brandon Johnson. That's a great example in Chicago. Like, you can't get much worse than that. If you can, man, it would be hard. It would be very hard. So, and the people of Chicago are starting to recognize that. And it took the immigration crisis to do it. But once again, that it takes being wrong and learning from it to actually get the right conclusion. The problem is are you going to act on it now? Are you going to actually do the right thing now? And yeah, it might be hard, but once again, you have to actually think about what is in the best interest of me and my community and my state and my country. And I think people just forget that. And the whole loyalty to the party over everything else has become so ingrained that it's like it overtakes everything when they go to the voting booth. And it's like, no, like actually engage a little bit in the process. Actually try to make a decision. Don't just do what you think you're supposed to do. Actually take it seriously and think about it. Because look at what we're left with. I mean, we're getting some of the most obviously evil people. I'm sorry, but obviously some of the most evil, greedy, self-centered, and nihilistic people that you could possibly imagine. And so you have to actually do something different to get the ship correct, to steer the ship in the right direction. So anyway, I just had to get that out. So let's get back to it. I had a lot to say on this. I didn't expect that this was going to bring up so much, but anyway, let's go.
Commend him on that, because that's the way it should be. Article 2, Section 2, sitting down, asking questions, understanding the vision, understanding what they want to do for the American people, and John giving them that shot, and they have to answer his questions, but that's the way that it should be done.
Let me ask you this about the press conference today. Obviously the American people voted on the issue of the economy, on the issue of immigration. Did you think that they were voting for taking over Panama or getting Greenland as a part of the U.S.?
So, Brett, what I think they did vote for is regaining American strength, that peace through strength, that respect in the world, that regaining our footing to where our allies respect us and our enemies fear us. They want to make sure that we get the hostages back in Gaza. They want to make sure that the Abraham Accords are not only there, but are expanded on. And they want us to regain our footing. And so that's what you saw today, was a reshaping of that, and an America starting to lead. And I think you'll see that from President Trump.
You think there'll be more of these parts? Go ahead.
Can I talk about, like, there's a lot of talk about Greenland, for example. Now, and I know there's a lot of freakouts, and of course I would never support taking it by force. But I do think it's a responsible conversation if they were open to acquiring it, and whether just buying it outright. I mean, if anyone think that's bonkers, it's like, well, remember the Louisiana Purchase? Well, I think Alaska was a great deal too. $50 million, I think it was. It was referred to as Seward's Folly, and now that was Alaska now. So I mean, open to having all kinds of conversations as well. And now I don't think it's not helpful to freak out, but some things might work out, some may not. But that's part of an ongoing dialogue. But he hasn't even taken office in 2 weeks, and we really need to pace ourselves if we're going to freak out over every last tweet or every last conversation or press conference. Because, but
that's good. That's a good one, John. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like we are here to work together. Yeah. And some things we can agree or disagree. But I think that's how DC works.
And you all have a great rapport. We saw it last time when you came on Common Ground. Do you think the 119th Congress is going to be more of trying to find that?
I hope so, and I hope the two of us can be a part of that. I mean, look, I think the people that elected us expect us, when we share a common goal with someone on the other side of the aisle, get in the room and figure it out. And there's a lot of things that we need to figure out for Americans, and so putting that first and figuring out how to work together to achieve that is essential.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like I said, I met with Sean Duffy, and privately he admitted that the Steelers is a lot better than the Packers. I mean, like, again, I don't.
And of course, I'm still with the Pats.
I'm like, I agree with you, but we're going to find a lot to work together, about infrastructure here in Pennsylvania and other. But regardless, so.
Well, thank you both for coming back. I appreciate it.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, and I will say this too, as far as Senator Britt goes, she gets criticized because she was, I think it was obviously kind of oops, bad decision kind of moment. But when she had to give the response to the State of the Union address the last time, it was, I think she was extremely emotional, and I can understand why, because there was a lot of very sensitive subjects that were touched on, and Biden, of course, handled it without any kind of respect whatsoever. He acted like it was similar to the red background MAGA Republicans or Nazis speech, but it was emotional. She couldn't really hold back being emotional, and she got criticized for it. But it's just probably not the best person. Whereas someone like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, for example, she gave that excellent response to the State of the Union the time before that, but the thing is that, like, by that same token, there are situations, and this is a great example, where someone like Katie Britt is going to be a great choice for somebody to try to reach out and try to have some sort of dialogue with someone on the other side. And apparently someone like John Fetterman is also the perfect person to do that with, because apparently there's somebody left on the Democrat side that actually is working in good faith. He doesn't have some sort of hidden agenda. He's not going back to his office and meeting with Chuck Schumer to tell him everything that was said, and then be given a script by Chuck Schumer probably about how exactly to respond next time he talks to this person or that person. That's what's so wild about this, is that like, even like, what can you do with the guy? That's got to be somebody they consider a problem. I mean, there's no way in hell they're looking at this and they like it, like, and by them, I mean, Schumer, Pelosi, Jeffries, these people. They can't like that at all. But at the same time, I would imagine that the American people look at that and say, wow, that's good to see. I'm glad to see there's actually hope for the Congress. And that's why, for me, I have to point this kind of stuff out, because with the reactions that you see from the left about everything, he just made a joke about it, and it's funny because, to say that in that way is almost like an acknowledgement of what's happening, but at the same time, it's almost depressing at the same time, because they're also literally freaking out about all of these decisions. And ironically, they're probably also going to freak out if they saw this and were to react to it as well, because you said stuff like, we shouldn't have anybody in this country who's committed crimes and is illegal, isn't supposed to be here. It's like that would piss off a bunch of the people on the left, even the people on the left, senators, or how about the squad? What do you think AOC thinks? Like, I mean, it's just hilarious. And at the same time, it's both hilarious and it's depressing, because it shows you the state of where we're at. This is considered like a big deal and a lucky break that we have a senator that's a Democrat that actually is reasonable and willing to have the discussion and the debate, and not just take orders and not just toe the party line, and not, it's amazing that that's where we're at. But at the same time, especially with this, because of the effects that have been going on, Trump hasn't even taken office yet, and there's been just it's like day after day after day, there's been something that's been a spotlight of, wow, look at what's happening. Look at what's happening already. He hasn't even taken office, and we've already got all these things. Yesterday, when I talked about Justin Trudeau is stepping down in Canada, once again, like, another win. And I said this, I think, before, but I think on the last episode, I think, as a matter of fact. But anyway, it was that President Trump did mention, you're going to get tired of winning, and or I hope you don't get tired of winning, I think was the quote. And it's true, because, like, when you see this kind of thing happen, and it just is a pattern of consistently over and over again, things that we've been, we've been really just dying to hear, or just hoping against hope we were going to see. And then you see them. It's amazing, but I think it's because, more than anything else, we've been living for 4 years while watching nothing but just catastrophe after catastrophe, and more types of situations that are just an outrage. I was watching these clips this morning, and I was seeing a flashback of the situation in front of the Supreme Court justices' houses during the Dobbs decision. And some idiot was trying to make the argument about how, it was David Pakman. Sorry. It was that fucking moron. He was trying to make the point that, because, and bear in mind, he just got read the statute that anyone who parades or pickets outside of the home of a justice or a sitting judge with the intent to influence the judge's decision is in violation of this law in the section and penal code. And so it's pretty cut and dry. And he still is like, I don't understand. I don't know if that's really actually. Wait, what? They're protesting the decision, are they not? But yeah, but that had already been decided. No, it got leaked. It was like this perfect storm of things that could have happened, and you couldn't have had a more clear-cut case of that law being violated if you tried. A case, opinion got leaked. That is never supposed to happen. I don't think that ever has happened. That someone leaked a unfinalized opinion from the Supreme Court before they had handed down their decision. Somebody in the court leaked it. Or somebody inside somehow leaked it. And because of that, it outraged the left that, oh no, they're going to send abortion back to the states. And so all the leftists got pissed. And of course, they started passing around information about where the justices live, where they went to church, where they put their kids in school, where, all these things. And so they'd show up at their houses and protest and be walking around all hours of the day. And it came out later that it was instructed by the secretary or the attorney general, Merrick Garland, that the instructions that were given to the United States Marshals who were on the scene, that they were to. They kept saying, ensure the safety of the justices. How about you ensure the safety of the justices by slapping cuffs on everybody that's breaking the law and getting them the fuck out of there? But no, that meant to them that no, just watch and make sure nothing happens. I'm sorry, what? Not only is that ridiculous and not enforcing the law, but you're wasting manpower by making them stand around all day watching this ridiculous protest. What is the point other than to potentially leave other places in the city with less law enforcement available than they otherwise would have were not for these people being allowed to break the law? Just like in 2020 when they were allowed to burn down cities. I mean, this is just such a constant pattern that we see over and over again, and it always comes from the same side, and they always have excuses. And then you have some jackass like David Pakman come on with his faux reasonable voice and try to muddy the waters enough to make his argument sound like it's reasonable. No, it's not reasonable, dude. You're just stupid. And that's exactly what happened there. And it's so common sense got thrown out the window a long time ago. And I think the reason it's so impactful to hear someone like John Fetterman, a Democratic senator, say things that make sense is because just whatever forces descended upon the Democratic Party and got them all to, sell their souls to some sort of agenda that was written by some demonic force. I don't know. I have no idea what it was, but they just don't deviate from the line. In fact, if they are challenged on it, there's only one response they will do, and that's double down. They don't know how to do anything else but double down, even if it's obvious as hell that they've lost. So, I mean, I guess in the case of presidential election, they'll do that. But I really think one of the main reasons they do that is because, I mean, you heard it all day. Well, we believe in the rule of law, and we believe in the peaceful transfer of power, and we believe in the idea that to peacefully make sure that there's no violence or no threats or no one is harmed while we are what's it called? Certifying the results of a free and fair election. We don't protest that sort of thing. Motherfucker, you guys have protested every single one of them, apparently, except this time, because you know what that would look like. And that's the only reason why, I think. That's the only reason why, is because they know that in this case it would look terrible. Because if there's one thing they focused on, it's January 6th, over and over and over and over again. Because out of all the things I mentioned, I already mentioned, like the justices, which, by the way, you had that nut job that traveled across the country that was going to kill Brett Kavanaugh. You had Senator Chuck Schumer standing on the steps of the Supreme Court, essentially threatening Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Gorsuch that they were going to pay the price, and they unleashed the whirlwind, and they were going to, who knows, they won't know it's going to hit them. Maybe an assassin from halfway across the country is going to maybe hit you. But it's just like, and so there's that, and then there's the 2020, everybody's supposed to social distance and stay at home and not go out, unless you're protesting George Floyd dying from fentanyl poisoning. Then you can go out and protest all you want about police brutality, but so just like, it's like Senator Kennedy says, not about the dildo. What Senator Kennedy says about if there weren't double standards, there'd be no standards. And that's basically the current motto of the Democrat Party, unfortunately. But I hope that, especially, come the midterms, if the American people kind of see some kind of results that will let them recognize, like, hey, actually, yeah, man. Because I remember, I've talked about this a couple times before, but I remember when prices especially in California, dropped to around $2 a gallon for gas. I hadn't seen that in my lifetime. Maybe when I was like 5, but I don't remember it. But I mean, the point is that, we don't get prices like that in California. The lowest I'd seen before that, I think, was like $3.50 maybe, and that was low as hell. Now all of a sudden we're getting $2 and around $2 or even less for gas. Seriously? It was like something was wrong. Something is going on here that's very strange. I don't know what's happening. And so I think that the cultural shock of recognizing what's happening during Trump's administration, if it can come fast enough by the time the midterms come around, and you have some Democrats running for Senate that actually are courageous enough to not jump on board the radical progressive line of ridiculous kinds of policies and decisions for bills and Senate topics to agree with and disagree with, then we might actually finally see some sort of push to return to some sort of level where we have the kind of country we had just 10, 15, 20 years ago. So and without the lies about weapons of mass destruction. So if we can get to that, then there may be some reason to not hold on to cope, but hold on to hope this time. So and that would be a hell of an accomplishment, especially for Donald Trump in his second term, to be able to walk away, even if the country's not 100% stable. He will have laid the foundation. Like I said, I think I mentioned this last time. Laying the foundation and the structures to build off of, so that it has that strong foundation that you can't just knock it over easily anymore. It doesn't have any weak points anymore that can be taken out quickly and easily. So the whole thing's compromised. And if we have that in place, then not only is it better, but it will remain better for a lot longer. So I won't make any predictions for sure, but I'll just say if we can see some things like that start to happen, then there's hope for the country yet, and we'll be seeing a lot more than just prices on gas go down. You see the entire quality of life go up in the country, and that's ultimately what I think is possible. And without a doubt, we should be making sure that we let our voices be heard, to be able to make sure we let people know that are in positions of power that this is what we think is the right decision. And it's because it will improve our quality of life, and it will improve the country as well. So, and it's usually a win-win anyway. So it's almost always a situation where, like once again for Greenland or the Panama Canal or anything like that, maybe give us a little bit better of a financial situation when we're dealing with you for using the Panama Canal, and not only giving those deals to China. And then we'll talk about, kind of helping you out with that incredible disrepair you got going on there. Maybe if you work with us a little bit, maybe we can make that happen. And if there's anybody that can negotiate a deal like that, it's Trump. So anyway, like I said, I don't want to take too long today, so I'm going to cut it there. I will see you guys tomorrow. This was a fun one. This one was actually really fun today, so I enjoyed it. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see what comes up tomorrow. It's almost impossible to tell what is going to be happening, but I'll definitely be back tomorrow, and I will see you guys then. So until tomorrow, take care of yourselves. Have a great afternoon, evening, or whatever it is where you're at, and I'll talk to you then. So stay safe and have a good night. Peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Honey? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is?
For credits.
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?